Everyone. Okay, continuing on the Ilchot Shabbat, Rabotai, the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Shin Mem introduces us to the melacha of tofer. Sewing on Shabbat and tearing on Shabbat is the sister melacha. So you're not allowed to sew 2 stitches and you're not allowed to tear on Shabbat. Practically speaking, there was a time where diapers were not made out of Velcro. And there's a big question, how could you stick on diapers and take them off on Shabbat? It's a whole big discussion. Rabbi Shalom Misas in Shemesh Umagen Siman Mem Zayin discusses this at length, and he says it could be that even though it's called tofer, that you are sticking things together and you are really sticking together would be asur, but maybe since it's the way of wearing it, it's just like the Ben Ish Chai says, when you put on a turban on your head and you have to sew it in and you take it off every time, it will be allowed over here too as well. That's what he suggests. That's what he suggested Rabbi Shalom Misas. Now, the truth is nowadays, as I mentioned, it's not relevant anymore because the diapers are made out of this Velcro type of material, and Velcro is not really called tofer. It's just like putting hooks, miniature hooks one to the other, and the poskim say it's allowed. But one thing that does come up very often, people ask me, is about all types of sticky notes and all types of those notes that post-its that go in and out of that you could put in and out of a book. Let's say you're reading a sifin on Shabbat and you want to remember something, you want to put a post-it note. Are you allowed to do that on Shabbat or not? So here it gets down to the heart of tofer. According to Rabbi Shalom Misas, for sure it's allowed because it's the way of doing it, just like halbasha, it's like wearing it. But furthermore, there's other reasons why it's allowed. Rav Moshe Feinstein, Aruch HaShulchan, both write that the indicator to know whether something is tofer is whether you have to tear it when you stitched it. And if you don't have to tear it when you stitched it, it's not called stitching in the first place. What's an example, he says? Using safety pins on Shabbat. He says you don't have to tear the cloth when you put a safety pin on. You have to remove the safety pin. If you connect 2 pieces of cloth together with a safety pin, you don't have to tear the cloth. You just remove the safety pin. So since it's not korea, it's not called tofer either. And same thing too over here. Since when you put on the sticky notes, you don't have to tear it, it's not called tofer in the first place. So it'll be allowed to use it on Shabbat. Interesting, I saw that in the Shirot Utshuvot of Rabbi Moshe Toledano from a few hundred years ago, from Miknes, in Shirot Utshuvot, Hashamayim HaChadashim, Siman Nun Vav, says if you're reading a book and you see that there's a mistake, so you want to take your fingerprint, your nail, and you want to put your nail in there, because in those days the paper was made much, much thicker, and you'll remember that way, you're allowed. Now, that's called the Melechet Roshem. He didn't say it was called like you're making an imprint on something. But you see also that it's not called like you're preparing for the next day. So same thing with sticky notes. It's also not a problem preparing the next day because right now you want to remember. So it's not called Achana either. So this is the Melacha of Tofer. It's not applicable, and therefore you're allowed to use those sticky notes on Shabbat just like you're allowed to use diapers. Hazaku Baruch.